Okay, it's really hot here today in Mumbai, so I have to dress moderately. um, I have elsewhere recorded podcasts on how complicated the population problem is in the context of climate change. Typically, it's mentioned and it used to be used as an argument against climate action in the rich countries to say populated countries like China, India, Mexico are going to be a problem anyway, so we don't have to do anything. Fortunately, we have come a little bit past that now, and fortunately, fertility rates pretty much everywhere have been decreasing, and actual population growths have fallen below replacement rates in many places, and India and China are beginning to hopefully flatten out as well. But people who have fewer kids don't necessarily help climate because they give more resources to each kid, which means the consumption is higher. So a woman with 4 children is not adding much more or even adding less than a woman with 2 children, for example. But here is another angle where senior citizens living longer and longer in rich countries, Australia, Japan, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, and United States are actually having a consumption pattern that's adding to emissions and making it harder to bring down emissions, which is obviously not good news. But on the other hand, modern medicine has brought us longer lifespans. Maybe somehow we will also begin to consume less. So whether it's the population problem or the lifespan problem, it's the consumption that has to go down, right? So here is a figure that shows the percentage of consumption by in all countries in Australia, Japan, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, and the United States by age groups. So age less than 30 is up here in green, 30 to 44 in this bluish color, 45 to 69, 45 to 59 in the yellow color, and the age 60 plus are in the red colors. And there is a trend here. You can see that whether it's in all countries or in Australia, Japan, and so on, the numbers from 2005 to 2015 spell bad news. The amount of consumption by rich people, the caption is here, rising contribution of the aged group to greenhouse gas footprint of the global north. As you know, global south and global north divide the developing countries and the developed countries. The top figure that we were looking at is the share of greenhouse gas footprint by age group in developed countries. The numbers on the bar chart refer to percentage of share by age group, and this figure is per capita GHG footprint over time. So the percentage of GHG footprint for senior citizens has unfortunately gone up significantly in some countries, and not encouragingly, but still going up in other countries. I mean, there is no good news here, right? If you look at per capita, so again, Australia, United States, Western Europe, Eastern Europe, and Japan, with countries thrown in there as well. So this is now greenhouse gas footprint in tons per capita. So age less than 30, age 30 to 44, 45 to 59, and age 60 plus. The gray line refers to the average per capita GHG footprint of each country over the study period. Countries are ranked by per capita footprint of the age group in 2015. So you can see the ranking here and the footprint here. Okay, so the average is here, and the numbers above average are shown here. So you can see 2005, 10, and 15 going from yellow to orange to red. So again, just confirming that per capita footprint of the senior citizens above 60 is now beginning to add up. The medical miracle is beginning to affect the emissions, as you can expect. And where does the expenditure, what are the driving forces? Rising expenditures for the age group, per capita expenditures by product for each group in 2015. The size of the circle refers to average carbon multiplier, which is shown here, referring to greenhouse gas footprint per demand for products by age groups. Numbers indicate the difference in per capita expenditures between 60 plus groups and the previous group of 45 to 59 age group. So unfortunately, many times the expenditure goes up because they are rich, they are retired, and now they are enjoying life. Is that a bad thing? You want to have some balance between allowing people to enjoy a good life, standard of living, versus quality of life. Can you convince people that quality of life can be accomplished without adding greenhouse gases? Well, we need solutions, right? This is where climate scientists also have to do more in addition to saying what needs to be done in terms of working on solutions that are coming up, that are going to be available soon, right? So look at the countries again: Eastern and Western Europe, Japan, United States, and Australia. Items, interestingly, clothing, food, vegetables and fruit, meat and dairy, healthcare, manufactured products, shelter, energy, services, shelter, travel, and travel fuel. And here are the carbon intensities in tons times 1000 to the -1 times euro. So the carbon intensity is computed in some complicated way, but without worrying about it, just again look at how going from age 30 to age 60 plus, clothing drops almost across the board, but food goes up in Eastern pretty much across the board, actually. Maybe in Australia it flattens a little bit. Vegetables and fruits, maybe they are pursuing healthy habits, which is good. Make them live longer, be happy, be healthy, and cost less in terms of healthcare. But what is the impact on food miles, agricultural emissions, and greenhouse gas? Meat and dairy, bad news there. Massive increases of plus 30% in Eastern Europe, plus 35 in Western, plus 26 in Japan, 10% in US, and more than 5% in Australia. Manufactured products showing various increases for the 60 plus group. Shelter, energy, again increase. Services, various increases and flat or decreasing. Shelter increasing almost across. Travel, not a very big trend there, but you can see that travel fuel consumption is significantly higher in Western Europe and Eastern Europe, and it's decreasing in the United States from 20 for the 60 plus group compared to the group of 45 to 59, and same for Australia. So one has to find out more about the drivers and then see where there is room for reducing their carbon footprint without, of course, reducing the quality of life or the standard of living. Okay, so aging society requires strict local mitigation. You can look at it in terms of domestic emissions and outsourced emissions from developing and developed countries, kind of embedded carbon that they are in the products that are being used. The percentage of domestic and outsourced GHG emissions in total footprint by consumption categories across age groups for all countries in 2015. 4 key products are highlighted in color because they have the highest carbon intensity. Other products are in gray. So shelter, energy is colored, meat and dairy, and travel fuel are colored because they are highest carbon intensity. Okay, so Australia has high domestic intensity and it's lower in terms of emissions for the other things. Same for Eastern Europe in terms of shelter energy. Comes down for Japan, United States, but indicative of aging population, right? outsourced emissions from developing countries in terms of percentages, you can see that manufactured products are high in all regions. In Japan, travel fuel is high. Has to be figured out why that is, but you can see that there are contributions from manufactured products as well, even though their carbon intensity is not as high as travel fuel and so on. Sorry, manufactured products here are in this purple color, so the others are not mentioned here, but you can read up the book. Outsourced emissions from the developed countries, so either other global north countries which are separate from domestic emissions or within the same region. Right? It could be same region. Of course, for Australia, it has to be from outside. For Eastern Europe, it could be from other countries which are considered developed, and so on. And similarly, Western Europe. Okay. So outsourced emissions from developed countries, kind of lower in terms of percentages for Australia, but Eastern Europe has high import of meat and dairy. Same for Japan. Japan has very little land for growing beef, which they love. They get a lot of fish from outside, obviously, and other meat and dairy as well, because they don't have enough space for cattle either, so they are forced to bring food from outside. So behavioral change in terms of food consumption can help, but it's a culture that has relied on meat and fish for the longest time, so obviously that's going to be a tall order in terms of reducing footprint from meat and dairy in terms of outsourced emissions from developed countries. United States is lower for all categories, but you can see that Western Europe, which is generally a progressive on most things like renewable energy, climate action, climate funding, climate research, etc., is still doing fairly poorly in terms of outsourcing emissions from developed countries for meat and dairy and for manufactured goods. There are other that are dropping for the higher age groups. Okay, so I wanted to include this just as an indicator of just how hard it is to reduce our impact on the environment, because pretty much everything we do, where we go, when we go, how far we go, what we eat, where it comes from, and what we wear, how often we buy clothes, everything affects the environment. And age groups are obviously important to track, because you think maybe there is room to educate the younger groups. Already they are very active in Fridays for the Future and so on, moves that are demanding climate action, whereas the older age groups may have higher awareness, or they may be also cynical about, especially in the US, about what climate change is doing and who is responsible for it and so on. So this kind of age-based carbon footprints, greenhouse gas footprints, and the drivers of those footprints can allow us to be more specific in messaging and trying to bring down those greenhouse gases. Okay, so I'm going to leave it here.